Hello, this is Daniel from the Mental Takedown. I hope this Tuesday evening is finding you well in what seems like an endless quarantine, and I hope that everybody is doing well. First of all, I'd like to thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart for engaging in my podcast across multiple platforms. When I started this podcast as an idea in my head about a month ago, I genuinely didn't think anybody would ever care to listen on something that I released. If you haven't figured out already by my first episode, my voice really isn't meant for podcast or recording. But I figured I'd give it a shot anyway, because there was nothing else to do in quarantine anyway. Now, this is kind of a dual purpose video. I do have some interesting announcements for the show. Tomorrow morning at noon Central Standard Time, we will be releasing an interview with Travis Piotrowski. He just graduated from the University of Illinois, had an extremely successful college career, was a four-time NCAA qualifier, and really was a super nice guy, super amazing guy to have on the show. So, as always, thank you, Travis, and be on the lookout for that tomorrow. And also, of course, the third episode will be released the following Monday, so this next coming Monday, and it's with redshirt junior Josh FInesilver from Duke. He opens up about a variety of things that I think we'll find interesting. I will probably have a highlight from that interview, a little interesting clip, probably up either tonight or tomorrow morning. And a new segment that I'm thinking about doing, y'all can certainly let me know how y'all feel about this, is every 5-ish episodes I will be doing some form of recap on kind of the highlights and questions and answers that surprised me and something I may have not known before doing the interview, because as I've mentioned on my blog many times, I am generally probably compared to other podcast hosts, wrestling podcast hosts, my general knowledge of the sport is probably a couple tiers behind, everybody else. And I explained that, but I also kind of wanted to dive into why I do this show, not only just because I'm bored during quarantine, just like everybody else is, but I think, and I talk about this in my first ever blog post, and I keep plugging the blog, and I also think that I'm probably the only person that runs one of these archaic 2000s early blogs, but, it is what it is. And I mentioned on my blog that I think throughout not just wrestling coverage, but just sports coverage in general, that the human element of kind of collegiate sports and professional sports gets lost in kind of this oversaturated coverage, because it's much more exciting to watch a 10-second snippet of a beautiful double leg takedown or a wonderful cradle or spladle being hit. But for anybody looking to become a collegiate athlete, even though I am not one, what I am certain is we are all human. And this transcends anything that we do in life. And we can always engage in one another, because ultimately we are all still human. Now, in doing research for the FInesilver episode, I was having almost tunnel vision, trying to come up with a list of 15 to 20 ingenuitive questions, like I do every episode, trying to come up with questions that no one's ever thought of before from the same articles that were published 4 or 5 years ago. And wrestling mainstream media coverage, it's not like there's thousands of articles, like if you Google LeBron James or Steph Curry. And in doing research for that episode, I came across the FInesilvers. Obviously, they're a huge wrestling family. They've got 4 brothers that wrestle. 2 of them graduated from Duke. 2 of them are incoming juniors. I came across the FInesilver's father, who has been a teacher and coach in the Denver area for over 40 years. And obviously, I was interviewing his son the next day on my show, and I was vigorously working hard at 11:30 at night, trying to come up with a list of questions that were ingenuitive and interesting from the same articles that I'm sure everybody else has access to through just a simple Google search. And I came across these videos, and he started talking about his interactions with students, fellow teachers, parents over the past 40 years, and how during this coronavirus time, he's had time to reflect on these interpersonal relationships. And I found myself completely sidetracked and spent 30 minutes watching a TED Talk-esque series that had nothing to do with what my show was going to be about the next day. My point with this story is it is important to remember, especially in our current political climate, for lack of a better term, that we should be able to talk about things and talk about how sports and college athletics, the people that we meet, the experiences that we have. And I feel like that is lost through no fault of their own, but it is get lost sometimes through traditional forms of media coverage, because as I mentioned earlier, it's not the most interesting or sexiest thing to talk about. And that, I think, is something that we need. Again, I thank each and every one of you for not only listening to this spiel and rant, which I'm not sure how much sense it's going to make once I re-listen to it, but I do thank each and every one of you for listening to my podcast and do all the normal influencer stuff, like follow all the social media pages, subscribe, whatever new cool terminology that these websites are coming out with. I can't keep up. But thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.